our good friend Elijah Cummings and to talk about everything that has gone down here in Washington over the past 24 hours. It's been a crazy day of news. Joining us now, member of the House Intelligence and Oversight and Armed Services Committees, Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Speer of California. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you.
Obviously, we're saying goodbye to a great man. I think it's also the way we want to honor Elijah is also so connected and so symbolic to the challenges we are facing today. You're on oversight. What do you most focus on? What are the next steps as we try and close in on what is happening in Washington and what exactly will be the question of impeachment with this president?
Well, the Oversight Committee has been focused on all the corruption in this administration, but we've also been painfully in a position of not being able to access the information we need because there's been such a resistance to giving us documents that we need to do our job.
I mean, it really does seem like it's a loophole almost. I mean, that there isn't an answer when you have a complicit Congress in some ways and a White House that just says no. It seems like this is one area that we are not prepared for. So what's the answer?
Well, the answer is we've never had a president like this before. So the laws that we've had on the books have oftentimes been appropriately responded to. Clearly, he looks at every loophole, and so we're going to have to close those loopholes. If a staff member, if a federal employee refuses to meet with Congress, they should be in a position where they lose their salary.
Right.
For a period of time. We should use inherent contempt, which we haven't done, which would bring people to the House floor. They could be questioned there, and then if they don't comply,
inherent
they could be
contempt.
Fined.
What is that? What is that? How do you pull that trigger?
Well, it's done very simply by the House taking action to hold someone in inherent contempt. It was used for over 100 times in the last 2 centuries, but we haven't used it here since 1935.
Would that solve the problem of the lack of access to information, people, and answers?
I think that money always solves problems, doesn't it? If you're losing your salary, you're being fined, then there is a reason to comply with the law.
David?
Congresswoman, a federal judge has just ordered this week that the administration produce documents that you've requested within the next 30 days, I believe. Do you think to get all the information you need to make the case to the American people about the president, you're going to need additional litigation to compel production of witnesses, documents, or do you think you've got enough?
I think we're close to having enough. It's ironic that Mr. Volker had his private phone with his text messages on WhatsApp, which he provided to the committee, which provided really substantial corroboration for what we needed. I think Ambassador Taylor has done a very good job of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. His testimony was so compelling. So we probably should seek additional confirmation, but frankly, I think we have enough.
What about John Bolton? John Bolton is the person who was watching this and clearly was appalled by what he was seeing. How do you get John Bolton to tell the country what he knows?
Well, you can subpoena him. Now, we haven't made that decision yet, but I think his testimony could be very compelling. I think people who have been part of the apparatus for a long period of time and have watched this president action are truly shocked by the irreverence to the rule of law.
Yeah. Willie Geist has a question for you from New York. Willie?
Hey, Congresswoman, good to see you this morning. As you know, because you were in the room, Republicans walked in on the skiff yesterday, many of them with their phones out. We can put that stunt to the side for a second, but let me just take their criticism that this entire operation is being conducted in secret, that it's being done in the basement, as they say, which is where the skiff is. That's why you're doing it in the basement. But can you just paint a picture for our viewers of what it's like inside the room, who's in the room, who gets to ask questions to sort of maybe demystify a little bit the process?
So what happened yesterday was a high school prank by a bunch of 50-year-old white men, and it failed. The idea of walking back into the room after 5 hours and seeing these boxes of pizza boxes there was pretty stunning. What that committee room normally looks like is a typical committee room in which both Republicans and Democrats are given the opportunity on an equal basis to ask questions. An hour on the Democratic side, an hour on the Republican side, and then 45 minutes on each side, mostly done by staff attorneys and then by members afterwards. But it's a very fair process and one that the Republicans should be applauding as opposed to whining about.
So Republican leaders are free to ask questions as they like. They're free to go back and leak, they're not supposed to, but leak to the president and their caucus as they like. In other words, you're not shutting Republicans down inside that room?
No, absolutely not. There's 3 committees that are in this process right now in that room. So there's about 122 members of the House that have access to that room to participate in the proceedings. And the fairness is, I think, something we should be applauding. The Republicans are whining because the president is whining. And frankly, I think they did what they did yesterday because the president was whining that they weren't fighting for him hard enough.
Congresswoman, you're in the Armed Services Committee. There's obviously been a series of mercurial decisions made by the President of the United States that has involved troop movements, troop withdrawals from northern Syria. That rattles the nature of troop movements in the Middle East, American troop movements. Do you get any sense from the Pentagon, from people below the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff and the E-Ring, from colonels and people in charge of platoons and divisions, any sense of concern about what this is doing both to the morale of the American military and the idea of force protection in the Middle East for these withdrawing troops to various regions?
Well, I think the actions that the president took relative to Syria are a colossal mistake. And while I haven't been able to talk to any of our troops, when they were leaving in their convoys, they were being pummeled by rotten fruit by the Kurds, who rightfully felt that they had been abandoned by the United States after they served shoulder to shoulder and lost 11,000 of their Kurdish fighters in our efforts to try and put down ISIS. So it's a colossal mistake.
Congresswoman Donnie Deutsch, one more behind the scenes. You know, we see these congressmen making these ridiculous, as you said, white boy stunts. Is there ever a behind the scenes where you turn to them and you go, guys, come on. Like, you know, when the cameras are off and nobody's politicking, what percentage of these guys really are, I don't want to say in on the joke, but understand that this is something that is beyond the pale and that secretly they want this guy gone?
You know, Donnie, some of the members that were down there were friends of mine. I've worked closely with them. I was really appalled at the chanting and the loud accusations. There were a couple when I took them aside, said, you know, they rolled their eyes a little bit. But it's surprising what the herd instinct does to people. And I think it was in full display yesterday.
Yeesh. Congresswoman Jackie